Welcome to Money Mavericks and Mayhem, the podcast where finance meets audacity in a whirlwind of insight and excitement. Join hosts Adri Bleier and Ryan Duchak as they bring you closer to the stories of risk takers, rule breakers, and boundary pushers who are reshaping the financial landscape. Perfect for seasoned investors, budding entrepreneurs, or anyone curious about the tumultuous world of money. This is Money Mavericks and Mayhem.
Welcome back to Money Mavericks and Mayhem, where we dive into the lives of financial mavericks. Of course, we learn invaluable lessons in personal finance and uncover the scandals that shook the financial world. I'm your host, Adri Bleier, here with my co-host, Ryan Duchak.
Hi, everyone. Today we've got a fantastic lineup. We are going to start with an interview about Suze Orman. Then we'll move on to an introduction of financial planning and wrap up with the story of the ESM Government Securities Scandal. Let's dive right in, Adri.
Sounds good.
Adri, today we're talking about Suze Orman, a name that's become synonymous with personal finance. Can you tell us a bit about her background and how she became such a prominent figure in the field?
Yeah, sure. Suze Orman, she's one of these figures that you kind of love or hate when some people just think, oh, she's not really, she doesn't give the best advice, but there's always, nobody ever gets it 100% right, especially when you're on a public stage and you're being interviewed constantly. You've got podcasts and television shows, and you're going to make mistakes. And a lot of times people just cling on to those mistakes to make her look bad. But,
she's speaking to the masses, too,
right.
In that scenario. It's not, as we say, everything's individually based. And if we're talking to the masses, we have to talk in generalities. So it's not going to be perfect for everyone.
Exactly. And it's kind of a shame that I get why people do that. But if you look at her success in this field, she's done a heck of a job. And people a lot of times don't like success. They want to tear people down. But Suze Orman was born in Chicago in 1951. Her journey to financial prominence, as we said, it's remarkable. So she graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in not finance, but social work. Okay. Where then she moved to Berkeley, California, where she worked as a waitress for a while. In 1980, she borrowed $50,000 from friends to open a restaurant, but lost it all in a bad investment with a brokerage firm. Now, who knows what that means behind the scenes, right? But that's kind of how it's let out.
So, and that's odd. If you borrowed $50,000 to open a restaurant, why did that money go into a brokerage firm? But that's probably not the point of this story.
Right. We're not going to hit on the conspiracy side of things, so make your, do your own research, figure it out if you're interested. But obviously, she's now at a point where she's kind of lost everything she has. Her hopes and dreams are gone from trying to open this restaurant. That turned her to led her to then start exploring and deeply exploring finance.
But yeah, her restaurant dream is gone, and that's what she's been doing for her career, basically. That's quite a setback. I could see the shift to personal finance. Now, how did she bounce back? What did she do from there?
I mean, she did what people should do, right? She learned everything she possibly could about finance, right? So she studied it. She then became an advisor at Merrill Lynch. And at the time, she was one of the few women in a male-dominated industry. And then later, she joined Prudential Bach Securities before starting her own firm, the Suze Orman Financial Group, in 1987. This is only a 7-year period, which some people might argue, well, 7 years is a long time. It's really not. To start all the way over, learn what you're going to do, get your exams in. That's probably at least a year of that. Yeah. And then starting over, now you got to build a book. Now, I can't say that maybe she wasn't handed anything through Merrill or whatever, but you've got to build that book, and that takes time.
That's quick to go from Merrill. I mean, to your point, there's licensure, that's about a year. You're with Merrill for a few years, then go to Prudential for a few years, and then start your own firm. Like, that's either very aggressive or who knows?
Who knows, right? Her approach to finance was comprehensive, pretty much, because she focused not just on numbers, but on emotional and psychological aspects of money management. And that's a place in finance. You have people that are very analytical. I know we know a few, and that get stuck on just the numbers and being smart, right? And they try to communicate their intelligence to people by talking over them. And especially, I mean, I was a kid then, but in the 80s, I'm going to make an assumption that it was more so back then, like the analytical, somebody that's talking over me, maybe I should trust them because I don't understand any of this. Where I think we've come from education over that 40 years that we now understand that it's important to have people understand what you're talking about, not just tell them what. But it sounds like she was one of the first, I mean, I shouldn't say one of the first, but a notable figure to actually talk about that emotional, psychological aspects of investing, because it's a huge part of it.
That could actually explain why she moved around, because back then, financial advisors were known as your stockbroker.
Mm-hmm.
They sell you stocks. They're the Gordon Geckos, and they're the ones on the phone, buy this, sell that, and it was purely transactional, or I shouldn't say purely, but predominantly transactional back then. And she might have, and I'm putting words to her story that I'm sure she could say better, but she might have not really fit in because she actually cared about the financial planning side and like the advice aspect of finance, as opposed to trading stocks and just dialing for dollars, so to say.
Right.
And her influence goes beyond just advising for clients, right?
For sure. Yes. Susie had written several best-selling books, such as The 9 Steps to Financial Freedom and Women and Money. She had her TV show, which people may remember, the Susie Orman show, that ran for 13 years on primetime TV, a financial show. When people try to tear down Susie Orman, it's like, okay, I don't know an advisor who's done that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never met one. So you can agree or disagree on some of her advice, but it's really hard to break down what she's done in this industry. She's helped, I mean, literally helped millions of viewers understand how and that emotional aspect of managing their own finances. Because she's a big proponent of, you can use an advisor for help, but you can also help yourself. And kind of along the lines of Dave Ramsey, if you will, a little bit different niche, if you will, or niche, but
but different ideas and thoughts, but similar. You're the controller of your own destiny.
Exactly. I mean, she received 2 Emmy Awards. Come on now. Being named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world. Again, do I always agree with what Susie Orman has said? Of course not, because to your point earlier, she's talking to a wide swath of people, this giant audience, general information, and you can look at any individual situation and say, well, what Susie Orman said is wrong for you. Of course. But you're putting her in an impossible situation if you do that, and it's not fair, I don't think.
I agree. I mean, to me, the bottom line is Susie Orman is truly a financial maverick. There's no argument from my side on that. Personally speaking, I don't like anyone who speaks to the masses. I don't like marketed financial advice. I'm a believer that nothing is black and white. The same thing that is great for you may not be the best thing for me. It may not be bad, but it may not be the best. I don't like talking in generalities to people, but that is her job. And that's her platform. I'm in the same boat as you. I don't agree with a lot of the generalistic advice. What I will say about her, I truly believe that she wants to help people understand finance and take control of their financial future. Because we say this to clients all the time, Adri, and we say it jokingly, but it still rings true of, unless you're leaving me the money or giving me all of your money personally, my advice, it doesn't impact me. If you don't do this, it's your decision. Or if you do this, it's your decision. You're the one who has to understand it. You're the one who has to sleep with it. And it's your life. It's your retirement. It's your future. If things don't go well for you, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to feel bad, but I'm not going to be the one that can't afford something. That's why you have to take ownership. And I wholeheartedly feel that. You need some ownership. We will guide you. We will help you. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you as the person to put your head in the sand and say, I trust this person implicitly. I have no idea what they're talking about. And you don't have to know every finite detail of what we're saying and understand that necessarily, but you need to grasp the basics of what we're trying to accomplish. And that's what's important. And you need to be on board with it and understand. And that's whether it's budgeting, risk taking, and investing. It doesn't matter necessarily what it is, but you need to understand the decision you're making and how the ups, the downs, the pros, the cons, all of the high level stuff. And if you don't understand it, ask your advisor. If we're your advisor, ask us. Make us explain it in terms that you can understand. One of my biggest pet peeves as a financial advisor, and I will never say this out loud to a client or a prospect, please do not nod your head and smile at me when you don't actually understand what I'm telling you. Make me say it in a different way. People learn in different ways. People understand things in different ways. We can use a lot of different metaphors to try and explain something. And if it's not working, stop us, make us go back until you comprehend what I'm talking about. A lot of this stuff in personal finance and investing, a lot of it is incredibly complex. We need to understand what we're doing at the basic level. So make me explain that.
And I understand from some folks, our brains are all different. I'm fairly inquisitive. When I hire somebody to do construction work at the house, right, or remodel something, I'm not very good at that, right? I don't understand it, but I try to not shadow. I mean, I'm not trying to bother somebody as they're working, but I want to know what they're doing. Okay, well, how does that work? I don't know how a toilet works. You take it off and they're, oh, wow. You try to learn that way. And I understand some people find finance and investing boring. But if you put yourself in the right mindset and it's your money, you should never find that boring. You should find it somewhat interesting and at least engage, to your point, to at least have a finger on the pulse of what's going on. Not only, what we're doing, but why we're doing it. Why are you making this recommendation? How does this work? What's the long-term consequence of this? Every product, from a stock or a bond, a mutual fund, ETF, annuities, life insurance, wherever you want to go, they all have attributes, and there's pros and cons to each of them. Well, why are we combining these things to hit this goal that we've determined? How does that work, and where does that put us? And can we talk about this ongoing? Absolutely. That's why we, talk to clients, because bonds are a funny one. For some reason, people cannot get their head wrapped around bonds.
They're confusing.
They are they're just opposite of the way your brain works, kind of. And so every quarter, it's the same conversations. But that's great, because they need to, we try to get our clients to get in the habit of asking us and keeping us holding our feet to the fire of, okay, well, you put this plan in place a year ago. What are we doing now? Well, we're sticking with the plan as we talked a year ago. Unless something's drastically changed in your life, we're going to keep going. And as in life's going to change, we can't predict everything moving forward. So as life changes, we have those conversations. And for anybody out there listening that's shy or not sure or kind of timid because you don't feel like the industry and you don't want to look dumb, don't feel bad about looking dumb. Ask the questions and continue to ask the questions. And if you have a good advisor, you should come out with more knowledge. Again, you're not going to be an expert in that field probably unless you really dig into books and spend your free time studying. But your advisor should be giving you an education on the why, the how, right? And the goal that we're trying to reach.
Well, I always say you don't have to find investing or personal finance interesting, but you have to have an interest in it because it impacts you. So you can say it's boring. That's fine. You don't have to read that book or hear me talk and say, you don't have to be on the edge of your seat saying, this is amazing and fascinating information. It can be boring to you, but you still have to have an interest in it because it impacts you. And at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, money makes our worlds go around. And if you don't have it, your retirement is not going to be what you would like. Or taking the steps to plan appropriately and ensure or attempt to ensure, and nothing is guaranteed. We can't do that necessarily, but you can work to have an interest in your own success.
I agree. And I think that's a great segue into our lesson today, because our lesson is financial planning.
Yeah, let's take a break and then jump into it.
Sounds perfect.
Struggling to wake up refreshed to tackle your busy day? Introduce Nolapelli to your bedtime routine. Their innovative bedding and sleep masks work in sync with your body for a deeper, more restorative sleep. Made right here in the USA from advanced performance fabrics, Nolapelli products balance moisture and regulate temperature so you wake up looking and feeling ready to conquer whatever the day throws at you. Invest in better sleep and better mornings with Nolapelli. Use code MONEY15 for 15% off your first purchase, because the path to success starts with waking up on the right side of the bed. Nolapelli is not affiliated with LPL Financial or the Monteverdi Group.
All right, Ryan, we are back. As we talked about, we're going to jump into financial planning, which can seem overwhelming, as we discussed, to many people. Can you break down just the basics? We want to go kind of high level here for our listeners.
Of course. Financial planning, it's about setting goals, assessing your current financial situation, and then creating a roadmap to pursue those goals. So and that's the high level of it. I'm not going to go into specific details, but Adri, you've got a son who currently is looking at colleges, and it's the same concept. You set a goal. What kind of school do you want to go to? What do you want, what are the details of the school, academically, socially, location, and so forth? You set your goals of what you want. And then you look at where you currently are relative to what it's going to take to get you to that school. And then you create a plan of action in order to reach that goal. And part of it is whether it's obtainable or not when you're looking at the current situation, whether it's school or right now I'm a sophomore in high school. I've been a D student my whole career, but I have a goal to go to Harvard. And by the way, I can't get loans and I have no money saved and I can't afford it. Well, maybe that's not the right goal for you. Let's readjust your goal. And that's kind of the first key step to financial planning. Having those clear goals. It can be short term, like a vacation fund or birthday funds, whatever it may be, or it can be a long-term one like retirement plan. Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think about this a lot. It's like, okay, that is the core of what we do. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that, but we can't do our job without that part being done. Like, I get the question all the time. I'll run into somebody, they know what we do, and they'll say, "What stock should I buy?"
Yep.
What? Like, it's not what we do, right? We're helping people. First thing is, what are you trying to accomplish? And if you don't know, well, let's work on that first. Because once you have the goal, the investments are almost secondary in a sense. I mean, they kind of fall in place. It's like building something. You're not going to say, hey, I want to build a shed before I build, or I want to build something. Let me go get a Phillips head screwdriver and a hammer. And you're like, well, what are you building?
I don't know.
I don't know yet. Well, so it's once you know what you're going to build, the tools will fall into place.
Yeah, you back into that.
Right. Before you get the structure done or the planning done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's spot on. And one of the biggest keys with setting goals is be specific. To your example, if it's, I want to build something, that's my goal. That's a terrible goal. Don't mean to be rude, but that's a terrible goal. I want to build something. What do you want to build? I want to build a house. I want to build a shed. I want to build a bench. It doesn't matter what it is, but you have to specify. When we're talking finance, instead of saying, I want to save money, it should be something more along the lines of, I want to save $10,000 for a down payment on a house in 3 years. That way, we can work with you to back into that number. And I'm going to be much more simplistic because I'm doing this in my head off the cuff of instead of 10,000, let's say I want to save $12,000 dollars for a down payment on a house in 1 year or 2 years. Let's go that route. In 2 years, I can work backwards mathematically and say, okay, if I need $12,000 in 2 years, that's $500 a month at 0% growth. Just purely doing that, I will have 10,000. And then I can look at that goal to see if we should take some risk to try and get some interest or not, and look at it. And if truthfully saying, if it's in 1 to 2 years that you're looking to do this, let's take a very minimal amount of risk, if no risk at all, $500 a month. Can we do that? That goes into our next step. Assess the current situation. I need to look at my income, my expenses, my debts, my assets to get a clear picture where I stand financially. To do that, that's how I look and say, can I afford $500 a month savings to reach my goal of $10,000 for that down payment in 2 months or 2 years? I need to look to know if I have that $500 free, not just say, I'm going to save $500. Okay, from where?
Right.
How much do you currently save per month? 0. Everything that comes in goes out. Okay, well, we need to use, and we can use, in today's world of technology, we can use apps, websites, whatever, or just a simple spreadsheet or a pen and paper. Take a look at what I have coming in, what I'm spending, or we as a family are spending on average every single month. And then if there's not $500 left over to meet my goal, can there be? Can I cut money from something? And what's important to me, again, it's not my money. It's not my house that I'm not going to be able to buy or have the down payment for. It's up to you as our client or as the individual to decide. If we look through your budget and say, well, you spend $1,000 a month eating out or on entertainment, are you willing to cut that in half? It's not me. It's
Right.
you. The question comes to you. You may say, no. That's how we keep our sanity. That's my spouse and I, that's what brings us together. And that's the core of our lifestyle. And I would rather not buy a house and have that entertainment budget than not.
Right.
Okay, now we readjust, or how much can we do, and can we cut from someplace else? Looking through that to really see where we're at.
And
Then
that was a place where Susie Orman, she had a bit of a pushback because, again, that general audience, but she had said something on there was a podcast or a show about, well, you need to stop eating avocado toast and buying Starbucks lattes. And depending on the situation, if you have a goal, and I think that's primarily where most people fail, because they never put a goal in. I mean, if you're 20 some years old, you're trying to make ends meet, but you're trying to make ends meet, but yeah, you still want to go to the bar, and you still want to go to the breakfasts, and you want to go hang out with your friends, and you want to do all these things. It's very difficult, unless you're making a tremendous amount of money, to do all of those things and be able to save any money. I know there are some people out there that just aren't ever going to be able to save any money. It's a hard time that we live in for some folks, but there usually are places you can cut. So instead of going to the movies, you watch a Netflix movie, invite friends over, and maybe you don't go, maybe you love avocado toast. I like avocado toast. It's pretty good. But what I can do, I can go to the grocery store and buy 4 avocados for $4 and a bag of toast for probably $4 or so. And instead of spending $10 on one plate of avocado toast, I now have five days worth.
yes,
Don't do that.
that's exactly it.
You make your coffee at home. I can afford to go to Starbucks every day if I wanted to. But you know what I do? I make coffee at home. Why? Number one, it's more convenient. I don't want to drive to Starbucks every day. And I'm not the biggest fan of Starbucks, but I could go to any coffee shop. I have one I can literally walk to. But it's an expense that I don't need. A $3 cup of coffee versus a 15-cent cup of coffee that's just as good. I don't need that. I cut that out a long time ago. I used to go every morning to the coffee shop. And at the end of the day, it adds up real quick. I mean, $3 a day or $4 a day. If you're getting a latte or a large one, I don't know, with Starbucks. What's a Starbucks? Probably close to $8, I'm guessing, $6. I don't know.
And I would think it's closer to 8 than 6. And somebody told me they went to Starbucks, got a black cup of coffee, because that Starbucks is my example. And I apologize to Starbucks, knowing that they're listening. I apologize to all of Starbucks that you are my whipping boy, but that's the example I always give. And it boils down to knowledge is power. So and the person said it was $5 for a large black coffee, just coffee, just nothing,
Water,
no lattes, mates, tates, none of that, just pure coffee. And so if you run that math out, and this is what I do.
Yeah.
I even break it down less. I say, okay, you only do it when you go to work. That's 5 days a week for 4 weeks a month. So that's 20 times in a month. You're going there spending $5. And 20 times, and I'm not trying to be ignorant with going slow with this, but 20 times 5 is 100 times 12 months in a year. You're spending $1,200 a year on coffee. Is that worth it to you? Especially when I show you, if you spent 50 cents on coffee per day by brewing it at home and doing that, it's 50 cents a cup or K-cup and something like that. Now you're at $120 a year on coffee. And we break that down. So if I told you we could take that $1,080 and invest that or save that for you every year, starting today, when you are X years old, you have, and I'm just making this up, but if you do that, or for the next 5 years, you're going to have $10,000 saved. What is more important to you? Starbucks coffee and $0 saved, or homebrewed coffee, $10,000 after 5 years. And again, I don't care. It's not my money. You're the one who wants to save. Which is more important? If you say Starbucks, fine. To each his own. That's your decision. It's more important to you. And I think that was the backlash that Suze Orman got. It's more about it. I'm not saying you need to give up Starbucks.
No.
I'm not saying you need to give up avocado toast. Understand the decision that you are making, and you decide if you want to give them up or not. I mean, again, another thing we say in jest is the best financial advice I can give you in regards to budgeting is don't spend any money.
Right.
Don't enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Keep busting your butt, working, pay your taxes, come home, eat ramen noodles every night just to sustain yourself, and don't turn the lights on, don't have running water, go as extreme as you can get. That's how you save the most amount of money possible. That's the financial answer. The realistic answer is make the decision, make the choice of what's important to you and what is not. And then understand what you're getting into. Knowledge is power.
Yep.
That's
absolutely right.
And then once you have that knowledge, so to get back to the kind of keys to financial planning, create a budget, and a budget that you follow. That's boring. Nobody likes doing it. It's not fun. But by doing it, you can stick to the plan and hold yourself accountable. You allocate towards income, your expenses, savings, debt, and then set up automatic savings. An emergency savings category inside of a budget is very important. What happens if? What happens if you own a home? What happens if your water heater goes? Well, I've got a credit card at 30%. I can put a new water heater on that. 30% is real expensive. That $500 or $1,000 water heaters is going to end up costing you $2,000 if you put it on a credit card. Versus if we save money into your emergency savings account every year, or every month, excuse me, that is going to put you in a much better position if that emergency comes up. Life is unpredictable. I think that there are generalities, truthful, and I'll give the generalities since we're kind of speaking to the masses here, but it's 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. That's the generality. What if I lose my job? What if this? But the reality is go through the possibility. What happens if? What happens if I lose my job? Nothing, because we don't actually live off of my salary. We live off of our spouse's salary. Okay, then you might not need the 6 months. Or I'm the breadwinner. I'm the only one that works in the house. If I lose my job, I'm in a very tough field to get a new job in. Well, you might need a year. You might be more comfortable with 2 years of an emergency fund because you're very hard to reemploy. Versus if I got fired tomorrow, I can walk down the street and I have a new job that afternoon. Well, okay, you might not need a year. You might be closer to 3 months. Walk through the exercise. That's what's important to figure out that emergency fund number. Then next.
And I think that the problem is for a lot of people, all of this is very uncomfortable, right? Because when you put pen to paper and you really start drawing this out, and you get halfway through, and you're like, "Oh, I'm halfway through my budget and for the month, and I'm already pushing my limits, and I know I should take out these things. Like I know I should take out the bar twice a week and make that once a week, maybe. I'm not, because to your point, you're working hard, you should have fun, and then I don't really want to do that. Or maybe I can, and then your friend calls. And you're like, well, there goes the budget. And then you're like, okay, I'm not going to go any farther because I don't want to mentally put myself in that anxiety where I know I should be doing better, but I really don't want to, but I know that I should, and it can be very stressful to people. So it's much easier just to bury your head in the sand and pretend like it's all going to be okay.
You know, it is, but I will say from experience, my personal experience, I would say once you go through the planning process, it's about mindset and changing that. And you're constantly thinking, what is more important? So when your friend calls you and says, let's go to the bar, is that more important to you than your savings goals? If it is, go to the bar. If it's not, don't. Some of our wealthiest clients, or not even wealthiest, but most financially free clients, I think is the better way to say it, constantly say they cannot afford something. It's in its mindset. They have tons of money saved. They have plenty of money to do things. But when they look at their budget, if you call me tonight and it's late in the month, it's near the end of the pay cycle or my budget cycle, and you call and say, let's go out to a nice dinner and into the bar. I can't afford it. Can I? Yes. I can go, I can pay for it. But I'm close, or my entertainment budget is maxed out. So I just say, oh, I can't afford to today. Let's go next month. Or just, why don't you come over and sit on my back porch and have a beer here? That's the mindset of I cannot afford it. It's because my money is doing different things for me. I've given my money jobs. I've already used all of my entertainment budget, and the rest of my money for this pay period is earmarked for something else. So I can't afford to go to the bar with you. That's my answer to you. And in its pure mindset, and those are the people who have much lower financial worries because they know, even though they quote unquote can't afford to go do something, if something happens, the money's there. I've got it. That's one of the keys to going through the planning process. And when you haven't gone through, it's very easy to put your head in the sand because it's overwhelming, it's scary. You don't want to tell yourself no for anything. You deserve this. When you go through it, your mind shifts a little bit, and it's, I deserve my future, so that's why I'm doing that. And that's one of the other key components to planning. Investing for the future. Set those goals down. What do I want? What type of, do I want to retire? What type of retirement do I want? And you don't have to get so precise of, I want to live in this location, and here's the cost of living there today. And we can do the math on running all that stuff out, but only if there's major things. Like it's always been my dream to retire and live in, which has a very high cost of living. Well, I might need to plan accordingly for that versus not. I want to buy a ranch or a house in the woods in the middle of nowhere and have very few expenses. Maybe I don't need to save as much. Understanding what you're looking to do, now you can invest for your future to help you grow your wealth and understand your risk tolerance and explore options like stocks, bonds, retirement accounts, what you're trying to do. Then the last key is you did this today. That's great. It's not a one-time task. You should be reviewing the plan regularly, and it depends on where you are in your life stage, annually, or at least if you're very young, maybe biannually. But I'm always a proponent for annual, and then adjust it as needed. Life changes. Your financial plan should adapt accordingly as well. It's not as simple as, well, I said I was going to retire at 65, so that's my goal. Well, you know what? I'm getting older. I'm getting tired of the grind. So how does 60 sound? Well, let's look. Let's look at it, see if that is plausible or not. Adjust the plan, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But take a look.
Yeah. No, I think those are all great points. I think what you're saying is it's all about taking control of your finances and making informed decisions to really work toward your goals. And one of the things that I tell people, and maybe it makes sense to me because of the way my mind works, but I have people imagine that they own a business. And if you owned a business and you wanted to hire an employee, and you found somebody on where, I don't know, where do you find it? LinkedIn. They come in, you hire this person, and they say, what should I do? And you go, whatever you want. Like, I think that's many people kind of view their money that way. right? And now you have an employee that you're paying, but they're not being very efficient at anything because you didn't give them a specific goal. So if you can take your money and give every dollar, treat every single dollar like its own employee, like your own employee, and say, okay, your job is this. And it doesn't matter what it is as long as it fits in that budget. It could be your job is for retirement savings. Your job, and now this one over here, your job is for our annual vacation for our family, right? This job is for entertainment. And if you can do that, you will find that money works very similarly, where if you give it a precise goal, you can invest for that goal and it will be more productive for that goal instead of just having a general pot of money trying to just grow. People go, I just want to grow your money. What does that mean? Right to your point. What does that mean? If I know that I'm looking for retirement 40 years away from now, I can invest that differently, that bucket of money differently to hit that goal in 40 years. But if I know I have an annual vacation, right, that money has to be invested completely differently than this money over here. I think, I don't know if that makes sense to everybody, but it makes a lot of sense to me, just to break it down into different categories and then invest accordingly, depending on those directions that you're giving your money.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that's what, and to your point, it needs to make sense to the individual or the family of what that means. But everything has its own specific goals, and you can be as detailed or as generalistic as, I don't want to say as you want, but it might be just retirement planning. I want to retire. And okay, well, let's back in. Do you want a similar lifestyle to where you are today? No, I want to travel the world. Well, okay, now we can work and help you set a budget of what's that going to cost? What type of traveling the world are you talking about? You want to fly around on a private yacht or a private plane and across the oceans in your own yacht? That's one thing. You want to backpack across America and hitchhike the whole way? That's a different type of cost. Working to figure that out, and you can piece it together to then give a specific goal to each of those dollars. And Adri is not talking every single dollar bill you're giving a task to, but working with someone to say, okay, we should put X dollars here with this goal, and then X dollars over there with this goal, and work to go that path.
Yeah. I don't literally mean like look at every dollar and write on it, your goal is make piles of, Yeah, that would be crazy. But I think it gives a good overview of kind of the process of financial planning. Let's move on to our final segment of the day. Of course, the Mayhem segment coming right up after the break.
This episode is brought to you by the Monteverdi Group. In the world of finance, it's not just about managing your wealth, it's about navigating the journey with wisdom and foresight.
The Monteverdi Group stands with the visionaries and the innovators, offering bespoke financial strategies that align with your unique life goals. Whether you're eyeing the markets, planning your retirement oasis, or securing a legacy for generations to come, our team is dedicated to crafting a path that respects your ambitions and values.
So what sets the Monteverdi Group apart? Oh, it's our commitment to personalized service. We understand that every financial journey is unique, and that's why we tailor our approach to fit your individual needs. With a keen eye on the global financial landscape and a deep understanding of our clients, we strive to provide guidance that not only meets but exceeds expectations.
So come and join us at the Monteverdi Group, where your financial aspirations meet our expertise. We're here to navigate the complexities of wealth management together, ensuring that every step taken is a step towards achieving your dreams.
So discover a partnership that values your vision. Visit monteverdigroup.com to learn more about how we can support your financial journey. The Monteverdi Group, where your financial future is in dedicated hands.
That's MONTE, V as in Victor, ERDE, group.com. All right, Adri, we're back. The ESM Government Securities Scandal was one of the largest financial scandals of the. Can you walk us through what happened with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it wasn't the first one. It wasn't the last one. It will continue on. But ESM Government Securities was a dealer in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, founded in 1975 by a guy named Ronnie, I don't know if it's Houghton, and another guy named George Meade. For over a decade, the company, of course, appeared to be successful, but behind the scenes, they were engaged in massive fraud. ESM was hiding losses. They were inflating profits through fraudulent accounting practices. Of course, as these things go, they were issuing fake financial statements to lenders. They were issuing fake financial statements to auditors and to their investors as well. I'm sure, maybe people don't remember this, but most people today probably remember Bernie Madoff, Ponzi schemes. You almost hope. Well, this was, in the 70s, were the regulations that were put into place, presumably afterwards, enough? And it never seems to be. But
someone's always trying to figure out a new way based on the regulations. They want to find the loophole to get around it. My favorite question with things like this, because that everything you just said sounded like a highly insulated fraud. Financial statements are fake to their lenders, their auditors, their investors. If I'm faking everything, how does this come to light? How do I get caught?
You're right. Whistleblower, basically, right? I mean, it was
good people. Thank you.
Yes. The fraud was basically uncovered in March of '85 by Jose Gomez, who was a senior accountant at ESM, of course. He then reported the fraud directly to the SEC. He didn't go inside and tell his boss, hey, I think there's something going on. He went directly to the SEC, and the company's collapse followed pretty quickly after that. The scandal resulted in insignificant financial losses for banks, because this was a big firm, municipalities, and investors as well. One notable victim was Home State Savings Bank of Cincinnati, which lost $150 million and subsequently had to shut its doors. Right? Right. And you go, holy cow. These giant firm. You're talking about $150 million just on this one bank. And banks, municipalities. So there was a lot at stake, and that's a scary situation.
Yeah.
We talk about trust all the time, on how it's got to get to know people. I mean, it's hard on a corporate level. I mean, you don't know that anybody that you're doing business with on like Amazon or Target, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes of these companies, right?
Yeah.
We kind of trust that no matter what it is, even our local banks or our local hospitals, we trust that they're being run genuinely and for the best interest of their clients. But we don't.
You never know. I mean, to me, the one thing that I always do trust is that if your lack of morals or ethics where you are willing to do something like this, you can trust eventually it will come out. You will get caught. The shoe will drop. I can't say when or how long you'll get away with it. You might get away with it for a while, but eventually someone is going to see it and not keep their mouth shut. So good on Jose Gomez to stand up to it. And I'm sure they were incentivized, they were pressured inside of the company to just close their eyes and pretend like keep faking these things. And he said, no, I'm not okay with this. It's not good. It's not right. And he went to the SEC. So good for him. But now, what were the broader implications, the regulatory things that came in after this, or anything along those lines that came as a result of this scandal.
Yeah, I mean, it did lead to significant changes. It really, as all of these stories do, it underscores the need for better regulatory oversight and really stronger auditing practices, I think. Well, I get in this case within the financial industry, but these things, no matter what the industry is, always highlight those kind of things. Things maybe like stricter regulations and enhanced transparency, right? We always talk about transparency requirements. It was a stark reminder of the potential for fraud in the financial sector and the importance of vigilance and, of course, accountability, right? Keeping people accountable. And thank goodness you have people like Jose Gomez who said, I'm accountable for this. Something needs to be done. People are being misled in the best case of scenarios, in the most generous terms.
Yes, that's a very polite way of saying it. People are being misled, defrauded, ripped off, stolen from. Even in the politest way, they're being misled. Yeah, and you nailed it with, it's impossible to fully understand what's going on within companies, publicly traded, privately traded, doesn't matter. It's impossible to fully know what's going on, but it's still crucial to be aware of these types of scandals and understand that there is a very high importance of certain regulations and blandly doing due diligence and ensuring that, or attempt to ensure or reduce the risks associated as much as possible. You can never take them all out. There are nefarious people out there that are going to try and get one over on people. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. I don't see that changing, and it's important to understand it. And when we look at newer technology, newer things that aren't regulated yet, be cautious. You should be more cautious working and I'm not saying it's necessarily bad or good, quite frankly, but like the crypto world, that is not very well regulated currently. So you need to be more cautious in that space than you do the general stock investment space. Can both have bad apples? Absolutely. And it can both have good apples? Absolutely. You just need to be a little bit more cautious in that uncharted territory of newer concepts and ideas, but you need to understand the possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, even look at technology today, like AI. People are just putting everything they can into AI, which it's a very useful tool. But what are they doing with that information? We really don't know. It's too early. Okay, well, they say, well, it's used to make AI and machine learning better. Well, who has access to the information that I put into ChatGPT or any of the? I mean, there's thousands of them now. Who's managing that? And we just don't know. It's just, to your point, not to say don't use it, but be cautious.
Well, yeah, you use some caution and maybe not put all of your personal information into AI yet.
Right.
Like,
Don't put it's probably not a great idea to take your personal finances and upload them to AI so they can just say, well, where do I stand? And here's all my statements. And
here's where all of my, yeah.
I don't know.
And again, not saying that anything bad will happen.
Right.
You just don't know, and it's not highly regulated yet. Do you want to be the first one to find out that they're documenting all of this and using it to embezzle money from people who are entering their financial statements? You don't want to be the one telling the story.
Yeah, no, you don't. So be cautious for a little bit. But I think that's a good point to wrap up today's episode. We hope you enjoyed our discussion. We're talking about the life of Suze Orman. Ryan talked about very valuable insights regarding financial planning. And then, following up with the story of the ESM Government Securities Scandal. All those scandals always have a recurring theme pretty much. Now, don't forget to subscribe and rate the show if you like, and review our podcast. And join us next time for more fascinating stories and lessons. So until then, stay financially savvy and stay safe and always have fun.
Take care, everybody.
The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. There is no assurance that the techniques and strategies discussed are suitable for all investors or will yield positive outcomes. The purchase of certain securities may be required to effect some of the strategies. Investing involves risks including possible loss of principal. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.